The town of Hinton respectfully acknowledges that it is located on the First Peoples traditional lands. We recognize this traditional territory to show respect and understanding to those who walked this land since time immemorial. Today, we uphold our ongoing responsibility to work together in the spirit of the intent of the treaties with all the First Peoples and nations that call this place home. The town expresses gratitude for the opportunity to build a better community on these sacred lands for generations to come. And with that, this regular council meeting for December 25th, 2023 is called to order. Council, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda? Councilor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move to add minute with council to the agenda for today. I believe it was inadvertently left off the agenda.
Thank you, Councilor Ostashik. Council, we have a motion on the floor to add minute with council to the agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question that council add minute with council to the agenda for the regular council meeting of December 25th, 2023. Did I say December 5th? Sorry. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion carries unanimously. Administration, are there any further additions or deletions to the agenda?
Through the chair, there's nothing from administration.
Thank you. Councilor Haas.
I'd like to move that we accept or adopt the regular meeting of council for December 5th, 2023 as amended.
Thank you, Councilor Haas. Council, the motion on the floor is that we adopt the agenda for the regular council meeting for December 25th, 2023 as amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. Brings us to item 3.1 of the agenda, the regular council meeting, or the minutes for adoption of the regular council meeting for November 21st and the committee of the whole meeting on November 28th, 2023. Council, may we have a motion? Councilor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the council adopt the minutes for the regular council meeting for November 21st, 2023, and for committee of the whole meeting for November 28th, 2023. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Ostashik. Council, the motion on the floor is that council adopt the minutes from the regular council meeting November 21st, 2023, and the committee of the whole meeting November 28th, 2023. Any conversation or any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion carries unanimously. That brings us to section 4 of our agenda, 4.1, delegations and presentations, R999, presented by Amir Hasan. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mr. Hasan. I understand that we're going to do minute with council before the delegation. Thank you. Are there any citizens on the floor tonight that wish to speak with council? Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm here today to speak about the upcoming rezoning of the golf course area. In January, during the area structure plan update, there were many commitments made. I believe that prior to second reading, those commitments should be fulfilled. The developer promised a robust engagement plan to address any questions or concerns the public had. At their open house, they emphasized that the information presented was just a conceptual starting point, that they were taking the public feedback and would come back to citizens with updated plans. Council has repeatedly spoke about starting points, steps along the way, and everyone's looked forward to there being more information that they can share. Administration confirmed that there would be detailed outline plans and other more details as it came closer. It's paramount to note that the developer is purchasing community-owned parkland. And with that comes a higher degree of scrutiny which requires a heightened level of transparency. If a developer wants to bypass the steps to engage the community, they should simply buy private land that's already zoned for that purpose. In January, council was pressured into approving both second and third readings immediately after the public hearing, on the reason that not doing so would delay the construction, which was set to be August of 2023. We're now in December. Over the next couple of weeks, please do right by both the community and the developer. If the developer hasn't yet done the work to get the community up to speed, then task the developer with completing the crucial engagement work that was promised prior to any further readings. It is my belief that all parties are well-intentioned with this project, and the project could be transformative for Hinton. This development just needs some sunlight. Thanks for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson, and thank you for civic participation. Is there anyone else in attendance today that would like to speak with council during Minute with Council? It's okay. If you'd like to introduce yourself and have a minute, you're welcome to it.
Okay, first of all, does anybody know how many motels we have in this town? Anybody know? Nobody? Well, we got 19 motels. Do we really need something else? Not exactly. No, we don't. You know, so I'm dead against it. I don't think this town needs something that's ridiculous as that. You know, support the ones that we have, not the ones that, you know, are going to gain from us. No, you know. So my point is, why is even the town even thinking of something so ridiculous as this? Can anybody tell me?
And thank you, ma'am. Minute with Council is not a question and answer session. So thank you for speaking your thoughts, and we appreciate your civic participation.
All right.
Yes, sir. Please feel free to step forward if you'd state your name, and you have a minute to state your position.
My name is Carol Lavoy. I've lived in this town for 40 some years, to say the least. And I've also been a member of the golf course as a member for a large portion of that time, as well as being on the board for the last 3 years. My question that I'm putting, well, I guess it's not even a question, my statement is this. First of all, there's 3 golf courses in the immediate area. Not a one of the single courses have houses or residences on the course, which to me is a drawing feature, not having houses or residents or whatever on the course, for one thing. Second of all, I don't believe that sufficient work has been done to prove that the new proposed course is A, safe, and B, would be the course better than what it was, which is what was promised to the golf course. So I would like clarification, of course, on what will be done and how it's going to make the course better. Personally, I've walked from 16 to 17, and it's not a fun walk. And it's all uphill, and which was totally irrelevant. But the point being is, I don't see how this is going to better the course. The course right now currently has an extra hole for its own, for maintenance purposes and also for wedding purposes to generate currency. And as far as I'm concerned, if you lose a hole, you're not adding to the quality of the course at all.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for your civic participation. Is there anyone else in the room today? Yes, please, sir. State your name, and you have about a minute to.
Hello, my name is Bill McDonald. Okay, and my question is this whole project was first about a hotel and training center, and now it's being pushed off as a strip mall. Okay, and I think what the town really wants and the citizens is for an open house. And that's what I would like to see moving forward from this project, is an open house where they have par 99 in attendance, the town and the developer.
Thank you, sir. I saw some more hands. Yes, ma'am, please step forward, state your name, and you have about a minute. Hello.
My name is Ellen Lebrec. I'm also a member of the course. I I think a lot of us are really worried about what's going to happen to the layout and the play of our course. I feel there's not been enough independent, I guess, studies, surveys, whatever, of how that course design is actually going to work. Because when you put 3 par 3s back to back and you have a big development stuck in the middle of it, I don't see that being playable and attractive for our players that are coming from out of town that you're trying to draw into town. I get that it could be good for Hinton. I see a lot of really not transparent goals of this development. You have bungalows that are wanting to be put in between fairways that can't, in my opinion, facilitate safe play. I'd love to see independent course designers that are not belonging to PAR 99 give their independent study of what is safe play and how that's going to lay out. If I was a person that bought property in Terrace Heights with the selling factor of you have a beautiful golf course right next to you, mountain views, and now they're going to stick staff housing at the end of 10 and 14, and possibly a parking lot at the back of the Greenspan fence line, I'd be furious and not want to pay my taxes if that's what I bought into initially, and now I'm getting this shoved down my throat.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's very passionate to me that this get looked at better. And I also would like to see more transparency on the tax breaks that this developer is possibly getting that a lot of people in town I don't think are aware of. I want to see more transparency on the deals. I want to see more transparency on the designs, the specs of housing in between bungalows. Nobody specifies size, what they're going to look like, how they're putting it in, the traffic, the this, the that. I see other ways of putting a development in on that highway that doesn't cut up our course and sell it off piece by piece, even though the town owns portions, Qualico owns portions, and there's Crown land involved. I see the land at the end of hole 17 that sits there vacant. I'm not sure who owns it, but to me, that makes more sense to put it more west than smack dab in the middle.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak for a minute with council? Please, sir.
I agree with everything. Tom Overhill, I agree with everything that's been said. I'd just like to add one more comment. Every time I drive through Edson, I can't help but, well, the word pretty does not come to mind. We're a mill town. We've always lived with that. That's a reputation to everybody that comes through town. But you know something? It's softened. We've got bush as you go along, timber, trees that soften that industrial view. And you get, when coming from the west, you see that beautiful golf course. And if you're a golfer, it just kind of settles you down and you get a positive reflection on the town. When we take that golf course out, we're on the verge of being like Edson. That is some of the most valuable land, highway frontage left in west central Alberta. And the perception in our community is we are not getting full value. If these folks want to be welcome to our community, pay full value and enhance or maintain our golf course the way it is. Taking hole 16 out and shoving that spare hole at us is not working. We were always under the impression, like Qualico, when they wanted that land, they built proper holes. They didn't shove one that was a spare hole that provided weddings and such and gave us income for our golf club.
Thank you, sir. And do we have anyone else in attendance that wishes to speak with council during Minute with Council today? Seeing no one from the floor administration, is there anyone online that it wishes to speak during Minute with Council?
No, there are not.
Thank you. Please, ma'am.
My name's Pam Zawadiak. I've lived in this town since 1981. And I just heard that the town is jacking up the taxes 7%. And like, where's the notification? What are you doing with that money? Like, that's a lot of money, 7.5%. So I'd like to be informed about what you're spending that money on.
Thank you, ma'am. And I do invite you to join us at the budget meeting during our special committee of the whole after this regular council meeting. We do have public seating in the room next door. One last final call on the floor. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak with minute of council? Okay, thank you. That brings us to section 4 of our agenda today, delegations and presentations. And Mr. Hasan.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for the opportunity. There are a few clarifications and few ownerships that I would like to share with you. First of all, it's absolutely on me that we were not able to communicate exactly as what we had planned to do so. We changed 2 PR firms in between then and now we have just retained a third one. And every PR firm has its own expertise. So the internal intra-community communication itself is an art. And apparently we did not find the right communication firm in the first place, which did work with us for about 6 months. And then they had to be, or they opted out because of the demanding communication streams that we were putting in place. So we have retained, that's a good news. They're starting soon by Monday, they would be on board. They're being briefed as we speak. So that will bring us very, very close to the community and the pulse of the community. And alongside that, we have set up a community forum, online forum, and also we will be reaching out through Canada Post direct mail for their direct and very discreet opinions to collect as what the community would like to see. And why am I using this word community is because this is for the second part of my discussion here. When I had first reached this town, I saw this town as a place for an educational tourism. I saw this place as the birthplace for Canada's first teaching hotel university complex. And that was the dream. And the entire plan, and the community has seen that plan through the first open house, calls for a campus and 3 training facilities, along with a 40,000 square feet training convention center and a community amphitheater built into this place. So neither it's a strip mall, nor it's a hotel. It's 100% educational complex that is designed to feed the Western Canadian market with state-of-the-art facilities and provide the graduates that will work in these areas for years to come. I saw that distinct shortfall by driving almost 90,000 kilometers, stopping at every Tim Hortons and every town around in Alberta. 58 communities I visited. And this is the brainchild, this is the outcome of that tenure that I've spent in over 3 years. We have spent about $2.4 million so far. All of our services are locally procured. Right from our handyman to our lawyer, they're all from Hinton. We are neither part of any larger organization, nor we are contained by any kind of bureaucracy to call the shots. We are not a big company, but we believe in big dreams. We believe that Hinton has a lot to offer. We have recently retained a golf expert to address the concerns of the golfing society. There was a debate about a couple of weeks ago. We had engaged with golfing society, and we had a meeting one-on-one in which we had outlined all our plans and disclosed exactly as what the eventual plan might look like. The reason why I use the word might, because this stage, nothing is carved in stone. It's a program, it's a floor plan, it's an area program in the making. We had also offered a working group to the society so that both sides could sit around the table and build a fabulous forward-looking future for all of us. Having said that, this retained expert has started to redraw the drawings again to answer or address some of the key concerns that the society had. We've just recently signed another very transparent program. It's called IPD, Integrated Project Development Process. It is commonly used by the government, and I had said this in my prior addresses, that we are private, but we work public, and that's the reason why we are so transparent. IPD allows us to see every single aspect of the plan through the drawings and through the materials and through what kind of resources we would be requiring all along. It's a 4 months long process, and it's front heavy. It means it is costing us about $500,000 to build that. And we have retained Group 2, a company out of Edmonton, to work with us. The most important element is the Hinton of tomorrow. And that is very close to us. Why I said we? Because I call myself as a Hintonite. I bought a land, I'm building a home, and I'm not coming in commuting from BC. So you probably will see a guy walking around who is Hintonite, but he has a license plate from BC. And like me, there are other people too. We see charm in this town. We see life and the future. We see golf course as the most integral, most important community asset. And we are here to promote it, not to take it away. And for that purpose, out of my 30 years of hospitality, tourism, destination, and golf course marketing experience, I had made an offer that we should collaborate to create a world-class stage for the golf course, if it is possible. Of course, the owners are the town of Hinton. And so without your input, we wouldn't be able to reach to that milestone. Coming down to the academic achievement, 3 months ago, while we were still not through our accreditation at that time, the Travel Alberta reached out to us. They had read the published papers that were written here, right in Hinton, by myself and my counterpart, Dr. Walter Jameson, on the rural economy, and they offered us to conduct a joint research project. That was the first time that somebody outside Hinton had acknowledged the academic scale and the intellectual scale of somebody from Hinton. And that was a matter of pride for us. Fast forward, we arrived to the point where now we are accredited. We have established our strong foothold in the Ministry of Advanced Education. On the provincial level, we have been tested rigorously and have been found as a solid, very much of an articulated and capable institution that is promoting hospitality education and service industry education across Western Canada. So CHSR, Center for Hospitality Studies and Research, is an applied research institute. It is neither a strip mall nor a hotel. That is the heart of what this project is. If you take CHSR out, this project is dead. And CHSR has 4 components. Golf training is one component. How do you manage a golf course is one component. How do you manage a retail sales and service is another component. Then comes the hospitality and events planning. All these are the necessities that we see there's a shortfall. We arrived to that accreditation after submitting a very comprehensive business case to the ministry. And in writing, the compliance officer wrote back in response to that submission and said that we had set a new gold standard on which the applications are to be tested. And this happened through the moratorium. We take our job very seriously. We own it and will remain responsible to the community for its future. That's why I call this Hinton of tomorrow. Lastly, CHSR is completing its renovation at 247 Pembina Avenue, the building that we purchased. Just because we knew the journey would be long, as it's very hard and expensive to convert a recreational land into a commercial development. To expedite our presence and legitimize our presence, we started renovating. 247 Pembina is currently being utilized, the ground floor being utilized by the Hilton Courts. As being a community organization, we strongly feel the need of doing so, that we help. So we extended the courtesy, and they're occupying that until March 2024. So that's why we are squeezed on the second floor, and we are operating out of the second floor for now. We are constantly looking for new people to join our team. All of our employees are local. Our project coordinator is local. She happens to be from Philippines, but she's a Hintonite. Except Dr. Walter Jameson, who's soon going to be a Hintonite. He's been back and forth, and most of us know him. And myself, there's nobody else. So I welcome all the critics, and I welcome all the suggestions. And without critics, I think we wouldn't be able to achieve what we are here for. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Hasan. Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, sorry, I just have a couple of questions, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Mr. Hasan, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we had a presentation where the topic of public engagement came up. You know, and in short, that has been the one burning desire that I've heard very loud and clear from the community, is they feel like they need, forgive the phrase, a bit of a check-in, just so that they can come back, sort of see what the accumulation of the project is, so that they can have some pretty transparent and thorough input into how they feel about where things are at, et cetera, et cetera. And potentially, you know, sort of as a check stop before council has to get involved with any, you know, land use issues and public hearings. So I guess we had asked administration, you know, sort of what their point of view was and the timelines on facilitating that kind of open house and public feedback. What's, I guess, forgive the phrase, you know, sort of what's your schedule on this? How fast can we potentially make something like that available to the public so that they can come with all the potential partners at the table and ask some of those questions to get some clarification if they're not as up to date as various people?
Through the mayor, Councilor Magoon, the idea was that we will finish our restaging of our floor area program, and then we will launch the second open house to the public. We are hoping to have that milestone achieved by the 15th. So the drawings would be in our hands on the 15th of December, 2023. And given the Christmas holidays, if we are doing just very much of a careful calculation, 5th of January onwards, any day, which the council feels is a day of basically where everybody is convenient, as they are back from holidays, we can go back into an open house. And this time we would like to run a 2-day consecutive open house. So people who miss out on one day, they could come back on the next day.
Perfect. And if I could just speak to that, Mr. Mayor, that's good. I think that's important because again, that's been the missing link for, I think, a number of people. The problem is that, you know, the process works its way through in the background, but as I had said previously, we don't have a bunch of armchair politicians or developers in the room or out in the public. Some people just genuinely want to know, where are we at with this thing? What's it's going to look like? How's it going to potentially impact the golf course? How's it going to potentially impact the society, et cetera, et cetera? And there's a lot of important questions I think that they have. My hope is that that sort of process can lead to an unexciting, you know, public forum moving forward. If those questions get answered in a way that sort of eases off any of the tensions or the concerns that people have, or if it doesn't, then they can give that feedback to yourself, to council, and to the town, again, in a transparent sort of way. So that's, for me, that's the important thing that needs to happen next. Thank you.
Well,
Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hasan, during your presentation, I thought I heard you mention that you had received accreditation for your teaching facility. Can you verify that, and can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure.
Yep.
Yes, the accreditation the final stage of accreditation is two-stage process. We are on stage one of the two. We have completed the approval process, so we have been approved as an institution. And actual documentation is accreditation, actually, which is a certificate that comes from the ministry. So the certification is ready, waiting for us to file the security bond, which is a provincial requirement, and it takes 6 weeks for the banking institution to furnish that. It's not really a check or a draft. It's a document that is to be signed off by the institution on our guarantees. So Scotia Bank is working on it as we will start. Today, we just met them for the first time. We were previously working with CIBC, but CIBC doesn't have a branch here. So we moved the bank to Scotia Bank, and that's what we are at. Hopefully, by January the 15th, we will have the actual certification, accreditation certification in our hands. And also, just to add to Councillor Stashik, one more important thing is accreditation is the outcome of a very rigorous process. We all know that. But it does not permit the students to acquire the student aid from the government. That process is called designation or DLI, or Designated Learning Institute process. That takes roughly about a year, according to the Ministry of Advanced Education, from the day the institution is accredited. So we will enter into the final stage, and our ultimate goal is to get the DLI accreditation as well. So the students, local or domestic, would be able to get the student aid in that context. The ministry, citing our business case and the quality of submissions, have promised that they will help us to minimize that period from 1 year to anywhere between 3 to 5 months. That's the final stage. And after that, it's an annual check of quality standards and moving forward. We hope to have one final comment on this so that the council and the public is up to date on this. We are filing our undergraduate degree program outlines as well. So this will be a degree awarding institution, not only a diploma awarding institution.
May I ask a quick follow-up, Mr. Mayor?
Please, Councillor Stashik.
Who issues the accreditation for your facility?
Ministry of Advanced Education.
Provincial Ministry of
Provincial
Advanced
Ministry.
Education. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Hasan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Chambers.
Through the mayor to Mr. Hasan, thank you for being here today. So I'm very happy to hear that you'd consider a 2-day open house. I think that's a wonderful thing that many community members have been waiting for. Would your intention to be to have your golf expert on hand as well to discuss questions specifically with the golf course members and community as part of that?
Mayor, Councillor Chambers, they are retained for the duration of the project. So they will be on hand, they will be available, and they are based out of Calgary, so it's easier for them to commute. Though they will be working very vigorously to submit the first round of not really redesigned, but tweaked designs to avoid the safety zones and the other concerns, that walk concern as well. I see them being available for the 2-day open house and after going forward on a monthly call basis when we will be able to launch it so people could log in and can ask questions and why. Well,
Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and sir, thank you so much for being here today. You had mentioned Monday you're going to have a new communication system up and running. How, you may have said, and I might have missed it, but how is this communication going to be working? Is it a Facebook site or?
yes. So Mayor, Councillor Race, this is going to be a landing page. A landing page is an information deck that has up-to-date information on what is being achieved, how this whole journey started, and also has a form, a community form that will be filled in and then will be received by the PR firm We just wanted to remain independent. So they would have all the data as who said what, and then be able to answer and then report all that into our forums, the monthly forums that we are planning to have online, and sometimes depending on the weather, sometimes in person as well. So there's a series of activities that is taking place. We are also adding a LED screen, actually, which is an information billboard, actually. And this information billboard allows up-to-date information because it's all fed in real time. So if there is an approval come through, for example, the geotech approval has been there, it's been there for a while now. Environmental approval has been there for a while now. So all these studies have been completed. A lot of money has been spent. But these are the success milestones for the community as they embrace this fantastic institution and a welcome institution into the town of Hinton. All this update would be done live in real time. So we are trying to stay away from the print media because that takes a little longer. And there's no magazine or a newspaper which prints on weekly basis. Like there's one that's on weekly basis, but there is no other tool that will allow us to distribute to all the residents around, except online for now.
So I'm sorry. So how will we access that and get that information?
We will market it through the postcards, like I mentioned
Okay.
earlier, introduction that we will work with. We are already working with the Edmonton-based company that specializes in cascading the messages through Canada Post. It comes through a postcard, and it has its own link on it. It has its own small QR code that you can aim your cell phone at. It will take you there. And it is a rigorous exercise. So every month you receive a new bulletin coming into your mail if you opt in. So we don't want to bombard people with a lot of information unless they would like to receive. And that's by law as well.
So this is all in an effort to keep everybody informed.
That's right.
Every step of the way.
That's
we know
right.
what's
There's been considerable amount of money has been set aside just to service this communication process.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you for coming, and thank you everybody for coming. I appreciate it. Amir, if we change the public hearing date from December 19th into January, but say no later than the end of January, can your project accommodate this change? The reason why I ask is Councillor McGowan's mentioned communication. 3 of the 6 people that talked mentioned communication. But I think that if we did that, that would allow the public additional time to digest the upcoming information we're talking about that's coming from you and from the town, because we made a motion 2 weeks ago for additional public information. So the public would have additional time to digest that information coming from both of you. And the other reason is I think that December 19th is just a bad date because it's so close to Christmas, a lot of people will be traveling. So I think a date in January would be a better, more appropriate date, but I'd like to hear from you how it would affect your project, please.
Good Mayor, Councilor Taylor, this is, I would call it, if I was sitting on a different chair, I would call it a good idea. But I'm sitting here and I have clock ticking, not on the side of the cost matter, but there are certain milestones that are significant for us. Certainly, we will accommodate any kind of postponement. We will accommodate that. It will impact on our shows in the ground date, naturally. It will also impact on our in-time opening for several things. For example, how do we retain, or whether or not we retain the construction company, when we should retain, because it's all tied into the same approval process. So having said that, I mean, there's no time loss here for now. We have reached out. We have actually reached out to Group 2. We have signed the contract for IBD process. They have already called in for the first meeting, but yet we can accommodate this. Yes.
May I please? If I could, I'd like to put forward a motion for council. Thank you for the comments. I'd like to, that council direct administration to change the public hearing from December.
Councillor McGowan. Sorry, Councillor Taylor, can we do the motion after the delegation is complete?
Oh, sure.
I believe some councillors still have some questions. Thank you. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hasan, I guess a question. Even just in this room, I'm looking around and I see a number of, plugged in individuals who just really are seeking, I think, some more information in the project. They're looking for points of clarification or, seeking to share some of their concerns. Even before we get to that public hearing process and the open forum process, what would be the best way for them to get a hold of your development to say, hey, look, I really do have what I think is an easy question that I need some clarification on. How should they get a hold of you? Because again, that's one of those things I think over time that helps settle down the temperature a little bit of a project and gets good information out there in the community.
Sure. I can share my email address. That's the best way to write me, and I tend to respond right away if I can. That's one way to do it. The other way is that the new landing page, which is Hinton of Tomorrow, I will announce that through a mailer, and everybody will have it. That will be on the postcard. And prior to that, that will take about a week to 10 days to come out. But if somebody wants to reach me today, email, and email is the best way to get hold of me. Or if they do not want to write an email, just pick up the phone and call. And my number is on my website. It's 604-771-8105. And my email address is Amir, AMIR, @par999.ca.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. I guess my question, and it kind of in line with what Councillor Taylor was asking and also Councillor Magoon, you mentioned December 15th was the target date for a redesign look at it, and the public hearing is set for the 19th. And I'm also hearing from you that, sitting on both sides, you'd prefer that it happened on the 19th so we could move forward because if you've made some obligations. But I guess my question then is, and you've kind of answered a little bit with the platform coming out about a week after on Monday. Is there intention to, after the 15th, if the design is completed, to get that out in there so that if we do decide to go with the 19th, then there is that information out there so that the public can, because I mean, the public hearing is designed to have letters sent in, but also open for comments from the public at that meeting. So if there's not opportunity to write a letter, they can come. But is that the intention, is that after the 15th, that target date, that information will be immediately on that platform?
To the Mayor, Councillor Haas, there are two different parties that we are addressing in a sense. One side of the community is golfing society. They play a very important role in the economy of this town. And we are addressing this tweaking of the design to address the questions raised by the society. It is probably not in the greater interest or benefit, I would say. It could be greater in public interest, but not in the direct benefit of the rest of the people who don't play golf. But this is purely to address their needs and accommodate their needs. And there's a budget set aside for roughly about $50,000 to go back to the drawing board and reconfigure whatever we can. So having said that, that addresses only the golf society's requirements. Now, moving forward, the communication on the current development status and going forward steps, I think those are critical and those are important for the community to know. For that matter, the landing page is going to be very comprehensive. It will carry every single piece of information, right from who is the supplier, who is doing what, and it has different quadrants. It's almost a linear timeline that people can see moving forward. And they will be seeing all along the life of this project. So once the shovel's in the ground, they'll see that, okay, the groundbreaking is done, the community comes in, they celebrate the ribbon cutting and all that, once we reach to that point. But prior to that, today, Who are the stakeholders? What is Ministry of Advanced Education doing? What is Travel Alberta or Tourism Alberta is doing? Why are they so much suddenly interested in Hinton? Why are they taking Hinton as a test case for the future of rural Alberta? Why are they seeing a bigger picture, a light actually emitting from a town that is merely 15 minutes away from Jasper and not Jasper? What is that significant? So all those pieces that we have been in the background marketing Hinton with, we are successful in gaining their traction and seeing those benefits coming to life now. And that's one accreditation is one reason why through the moratorium, we still went through. And now the research paper that is being published through the Travel Alberta is another significant milestone. The community is more interested in the transparency, as I understand. Maybe my answer is incomplete, and I would like to learn more as what community wants and add those features and pieces of information onto this website. So this is not a carved in stone website. It is going to evolve over time. And I foresee that this website possibly will become a community bulletin board itself, and people will be able to post forum, good things about community celebrations. If one of our students out of our high schools is a top student per se, the celebration, if anything that anybody does good for the community, it should be posted there as well. So eventually it will turn into a platform.
I may follow up, please, just
Please.
quick. So based on this platform and based on what you just said, the bylaw that potentially could come to us as a public hearing on the 19th, is the information that's going to be on the platform address some of the questions that may come up in that public hearing that would be online in a week or so prior to hence also the golf portion of it, but this part of the project with the bylaw changing, that information will be made public, able to access it, and then come to that public hearing in plenty of time, potentially with some questions.
That's correct. You're right, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Taylor, is it a motion? Or do you have a question? Councillor Chambers.
Through the mayor, just one point of clarification. You talked about December 15th. Was that the target date for your website to be up and running? Is that what the
correct.
date was? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just some clarity here. The reconfiguration of the golf course, is that in result of the meeting you had with the Golf Society and what they said to you?
Through the mayor, Councilor Race, that was a long meeting. It took place on 247 Pembina Avenue and about 2 weeks ago. It was attended by the president and the vice president of the society. And we had two subject matter expert architects. One is a certified golf course designer. The company name is Ground Cubed. That's a company, that's an architectural firm. So the concerns raised in that meeting were taken very seriously. And Ground Cube was immediately retained to reconfigure our development to make sure that their concerns are addressed, both concerns are addressed. One was the safety zone and the other one was the walk. And I'm not a golfer, so I often joke that from point A to point B walk. That's all I call it. So it could be in professional terms something else, but that's what it means. So we are configuring as we speak the front and the right-hand side of development, which was the major concern. Front being the golf front, not the highway front. As you probably note from the original renderings, that none of the buildings are highway frontage buildings, means facing the way the other usual developments are in the town. And for significant reason, as we want to be a community place. We don't want to be a commercial highway front place, which is feeding into the commercial world only. That's the reason why. So we have to reconfigure, but keeping the same sense of the design element. If I may have.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Councillor Taylor.
Is that it? Thank you. I appreciate you saying that you could accommodate the change that I said, although it's not your preference. Because like I said, the public input timeframes just seemed too tight for December 19th, and then there was the other reason. So I'd like to put a motion forward, if I could, please, that council direct administration to change the public hearing from December 19th to no later than December 29th, 2024, sorry. January 20, sorry, change it, I got it written down January 29th to 2024. Actually said 23.
Administration, is there a date in there that you would like to recommend at this time?
Well, I haven't finished. Please.
Just give them a moment to catch up.
I haven't finished if I could.
Councillor Taylor, we'll just let them catch up for a moment here and
What addresses your question?
Through the mayor to members of council. So we have two options that would be available to us because this would have to be as a part of a council meeting. So we have January 2nd and we also have January 16th, which are the two regular meetings in January.
Thank you, administration. Councillor Taylor, please complete the wording of your motion.
If I couldn't, thank you. That council direct administration to reschedule public hearing date for the municipal development plan 100844 and the land use bylaw to no later than January 29th, 2024, and to work with PAR 99 to pick a date in that period.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. CAO, are there any concerns with this motion as it stands?
Through the mayor to members of council. So I have two concerns about it. First is council would have to be specific on the actual date because it is council that sets that date. So providing a window for administration wouldn't fulfill our obligations through the MGA. So I'd ask for that to be specific. The second thing with this is we have made a motion to set the date as per the MGA. That is a prescribed process through our legislation. I believe it would be cleaner if we were to rescind that motion that was made and then to provide a new motion. Now, with that, because what I'm recommending is to rescind it today without notice. That does require a 2/3 vote of council in order to rescind it, and then a simple majority in order to set a new date for what I would recommend be January 16th.
Thank you, CO Panasiuk. Councillor Taylor, given the new information, would you like to amend the wording of your motion?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate your help. Help me, anybody, if you can. The council direct administration to reschedule a public hearing date for the municipal development plan 1084-2 and the land use bylaw 1084 to January 16th, 2024. Is that the date?
That was the date they had mentioned, Councillor.
Thank you. And I got some comments and I have a question for administration.
Point of order, sorry, if I may.
Councillor Haas.
Yeah. We're discussing a motion. The recommendation is we have to rescind that other motion before we even consider this one. We have to have a 2/3 motion. So this conversation, I feel, can only happen with that motion of and 2/3 vote to rescind before we can even debate this one, because it is on the books as the 19th. So that's my recommendation at this point. Thank you.
For the point of order, I'm going to rule with Councillor Haas. And at this time, if Councillor Taylor, if you're willing to rescind this motion and put up a motion to excellent. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to rescind the previous motion to have a public hearing on December 19th. Or words to that effect.
Yeah, and through the mayor and also for Jen's purposes, that motion number is RC dash 231121.05.
Thank you, CAO Panasic.
May I speak to what I'm doing, please?
Yes, Councillor Taylor, you may now speak to it.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. The reason why I'm making this change is because this project is so important to Hinton. It's going to bring in $30 million, $30 million facility that I think is going to generate upwards of.
Table right now that Councillor Taylor's speaking to. It's a motion to rescind.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. On the point of order, he is correct. Councillor Taylor, please speak only to the motion to rescind. We're not getting into the details about what we'll do after we rescind, strictly on the rescinding of this.
I think I've already spoken to it and why I think rescinding this and getting another date is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. So, Council, we have a motion on the floor to rescind motion RC 231121.05 that Council direct administration to schedule a public hearing on December 19th, 2023 at 4 p.m. in the Council chambers to hear public comments on bylaw number 1084 TAC 2. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking only to the motion on the floor, I would like to speak further to this at a later point, but I would certainly like to support rescinding this this previous motion so that we can examine this in a little bit more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will not support this motion. You know, just what, 15 minutes ago, we got a whole bunch of new information in front of us. I have no time to go to the public and say, what do you think? Another thing is, this man gave everybody his email, so you can all email him and ask him questions. He gave you his phone number. I'll tell you, I've used that and I've called him. Another thing is, he said on Monday, his new communication systems is going to be up and running. Any questions you guys have? So for those reasons, I can't support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So again, in trying to speak to the motion on the floor, but in trying to sway a fellow councillor, because we do need 2/3 on this, I think this is essential in order to explore this a little bit further. And for myself, I've gotten some pretty clear feedback that the community wants an opportunity to do that. And so in order for us to make that happen in as clear and transparent a way as possible, we have to rescind the pre-existing motion. So I would again, my plea to my fellow councillors is to strongly support that so that we can explore this in more detail. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm speaking in favor of the proposed motion. If the concern is time to be able to make sure that everybody does have an opportunity to feel that they're as fully informed as they possibly can before making a decision, for me, this is the avenue to achieve that. I'm assuming that after, if this passes, that Councillor Taylor's previous motion is going to come back on the table and that will be up for consideration. We can speak to it at that point. But for me, if the concern is time, this is the avenue where we create that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Anything else from council?
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Administration.
Thank you. Just one process thing, and I think the motion that's up is still appropriate, but there are two processes that we voted on to set the public hearing date for that time. One was a land use bylaw, and the other one was the municipal development plan. So the motion that you have up there and the specific motion was related to the municipal development plan. The land use bylaw, there was a similar motion that was made that was to set the public hearing date of December 19th for the land use bylaw as well. So if council would like to tackle that in two separate motions, we could make two motions to rescind both of those. Or if council's amendable to it, we could do it both in one motion.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. At this stage, we've debated the motion at hand. We're going to stick with the motion at hand, and if we need a second motion, we'll do that at the time. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So one thing I want to remind council of, everybody who spoke at minute with council prior to Amir doing his delegation. So he presented all this information, talked, I'm seeing people shake their head. This is just what I heard. So I'm saying again, they made their comments prior to him speaking. Maybe their thought process has changed. Maybe yours hasn't changed, but maybe some others have. So I'm staying firm on this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm definitely going to speak in support of this. I think our community, loud and clear through multiple forums, has expressed concerns. I truly appreciate what the new platforms and the new information that you're bringing on. I know that it will cause some issues, but I think that what we have to gain by giving the community a little bit more time has a lot more value to what we would potentially be losing in a few potential construction delays and a few things. So I think this is really invaluable for our community to feel that they have the support of us and also the support in that lifeline to PAR 999, that their concerns are being heard and things will be amended. And I think we'd be in a position to come back a lot more confidently at a future hearing with some more time and information.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Anything further from council? Administration.
Thank you, through the mayor, to members of council. The only thing that I will say is I don't want the processes on December 19th or anyone's thoughts to conflate the entirety of the project. This is very much a phased and a stepped approach. Right now, what we are determining as a council and as the community is whether or not that land is conducive for this type of development, right? The details of how the development is going to occur and, exactly where things are going to go and all of those details that I think the community wants, that won't necessarily be a part of this process, right? There's many other steps that need to occur throughout the course of this project to eventually get to subdivision sale and construction of the project. And those are the steps where those details are ironed out. As of right now, PAR 999 has provided significantly more details than developments I've seen at this stage of the process. And so I think that's great. But I also think there's a challenge in conflating everything within this one process. And I just want to caution council against that. There'll be a lot of opportunities for discussing the details of the project, but the process that will happen on December 19th or January 16th will be specific to whether or not this type of development is going to be conducive for that piece of property.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. And for administration, can you confirm that with the public hearings scheduled for December 19th as they are today, that out of those meetings, the city or the municipality is not bound contractually to any further developments regarding the PAR 99 lands at this time?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Sorry. With the public hearings coming on December 19th, regardless of the actions of council on that date, the municipality is still not committed to any specifics with this project at this point. We're specifically talking only about a zoning amendment. Is that not correct?
Through the chair to members of council, that's correct. This is a very prescriptive process with a lot of these checks and balances included. So there's a lot of other conditions that will have to be satisfied that council will have to be satisfied with prior to going forward. So working through those and the other steps of the process will be part of it. The other thing for December 19th is if this is one route to take, and this is reassigning the statutory public hearing. Public hearings and public engagement doesn't necessarily have to be statutory or dictated by the MGA. If council is comfortable, but again, this is up to council and it can't be forethought, but if council was not prepared to provide second and third reading to this, we could always dictate a further process that wouldn't be statutory, but it would be at the direction of council at a later date. So that's the other option for council to keep in mind. And my apologies for throwing a lot of different options out there, but those are out there for council to consider.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. And I do have one more further clarifying question for you. And that is, as you mentioned, on the 19th, council does have options where we can continue further engagement with the public on this issue. We do not have to take any specific actions on the 19th. And that is correct?
Through the mayor to members of council, we have an obligation to go through the public hearing process, but that's about it. Whether we decide to proceed with second and third reading would be at the discretion of council.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. Anything further from council? Administration? Can we get the motion back up on the screen, please? Thank you. Councillor Race, did you have something further?
So December 19th, we're looking at second and third. If we decide not to do second and third that night, we could do it January 2nd, make a motion to, is that correct?
CAO Panasic.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, administration. Anything further, Councillor Race?
So the public hearing can still take place, but we do not have to do second and third that night. We can continue the conversation into January. That's what I'm hearing.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Magoon.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I just want to, again, debating this point about whether to rescind or not, and in hearing what Councillor Race is sort of teasing out of the CAO, the point of the matter, though, at a public hearing is that we hear concerns from the public. And just like we make sure that councillors have as much information as they feel necessary to discuss and tease out an issue, the point of a public hearing is that the public has as much information as they need in order to fulfill sort of their end of things to give us feedback. So in this instance, what I'm continuing to hear, and again, because it's important to have as much of council support a potential rescinding of a motion as possible, I don't think that the community feels like they have all the information necessary to provide that feedback to council. So it's not a matter of can council just delay the decision till later. The public needs the information so that they can provide council with the feedback to fulfill that process. So again, I'm really going to push this. I think it's important that council support the rescinding of this motion so that we can explore this a little bit more fully.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, and I knew what the town manager mentioned about what we could do on the 19th as well. But I do think it's important before we even start the public input process that we get all the information out there and not get it out halfway through the process. And that's the intent of what I'm trying to do tonight because of the concerns I've heard and give this project the best chance of success. I mean, you put a lot of effort, a lot of money into this, and I think this gives you the best chance of success to do it in this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Anything further from council? Seeing nothing, I'm going to speak to this motion. I'm not going to be in support of this motion. I don't believe there's any new information today than there was in the council meeting when we set this date in the first place. And I think that the town of Hinton needs to be a good business partner going forward. And we've already notified the public. We've already advertised. I'm not interested in changing the public hearing date, so I won't be voting in favor of this motion. And with that, we'll call the question that council rescind motion RC 231121.05. Oh, Councillor Ostashik would like to comment. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to save this comment for if the previous motion came back to the table, but I feel it's prudent to make it now. Part of the reason that I support having this come forward is because of the lack of information confuses the purpose and the input that we're going to get when this public hearing comes forward. In the absence of a venue where citizens can get the information and ask the questions that they need to get the answers to so that they're comfortable in their level of knowledge. Currently, that doesn't exist. So by having the public hearing on December 19th, we're going to get citizens coming forward and trying to use that as a venue to be able to get the answers that they're looking for. I don't want to see that happen. I want that to be a separate function where they can get that information, and then later we can discuss the public hearing portion of it, which is intended to be focused solely on amending the land use bylaw and I'm sorry, I forget what the other one is, but amending those two bylaws. It's not supposed to be about what the development is, what's going to be built there, what's not going to be built there. Those are different questions than what relate to amending those two bylaws. That's why I want to draw a separation, and that's why I think it's important that they occur at separate dates. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Once again, anything further from council? Excellent. We'll call the motion that council rescind motion RC 231121.05. The council direct administration to schedule a public hearing on December 19th, 2023 at 4 p.m. in the council chambers to hear public comments on bylaw number 1084 TAC 2. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is carried 5-2 with Mayor Nissen and Councillor Race voting against. Councillor Taylor.
I'm under the understanding from the town manager that another motion is required. May I proceed with that, please?
That is correct, Councillor Taylor. Before you do, may we get the motion the relevant motion number from administration?
Through the mayor to members of council, the next motion would be related to motion RC 231121.08. And that was the motion to direct administration to schedule a public hearing for December 19th related to comments of bylaw 1088-18.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. And Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
That's the numbers in the motion that I need.
That's correct.
Would you like me to read it, or can we just leave it the way it is? I'll read it.
Please do.
For the record, that council rescind motion RC 231121-08, the council direct administration to schedule a public hearing for December 19th, 2023 at 4 p.m. in the council chambers to hear public comments on bylaw number 10088-18. I've said anything I want to say on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, any discussion? Then we'll call the question. The council rescind motion RC 231121.08. The council direct administration to schedule a public hearing for December 19th, 2023 at 4 p.m. in the council chambers to hear public comments on bylaw number 1088 TAC 18. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion carries with 1 against Councillor Race. Councillor Taylor.
May I please put up the original motion?
Yes, you may, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. Okay. That council direct administration to reschedule a public hearing date for the municipal development plan 1084-2 and the land use bylaw 1088 to no later than January 16th, 2024. And
if you want to speak to it, speak to it.
I don't want to say much, but this project is very impactful to the community. $30 million and $400,000 to $500,000 worth of direct revenue for property taxes, plus all the indirect revenue, all the indirect jobs, all the maybe support Part 99 would do for nonprofits in the town. We invited you into the community. You spent over $2 million on this particular project. I believe that this course allows you to have the best chance of success, and that's why I'm doing it. I know it's an inconvenience, and I appreciate you being flexible to allow it. Thank you very much. Or not to allow it, but to accommodate it.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Administration.
Thank you. Through the mayor to members of council, if I could just make one suggestion on the wording, instead of to no later than January 16th, to put on January 16th at 4 o'clock. I don't believe that changes the intent or anything related to the motion, but specifying the day and time would be a requirement for us.
Thank you, CAO Panasic and Councillor Taylor. Are you okay with that? Thank you. So the motion on the floor is that council direct administration to reschedule the public hearing date for the municipal development plan 1084 TAC 2 and the land use bylaw 1088 TAC 18 to January 16th, 2024 at 4 p.m. Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciate the motion by my colleague, Councillor Taylor. Thank you. I think we all know that Christmas time is one of those times when things get weird, they get busy. People need some time to digest this information because ultimately the public hearing should be the least interesting part of this process. And this was discussed by several of my other colleagues. The first thing is the public has asked for, some public hearings to take place so that they can be better informed about what the reality of the potential project is, which gives them the opportunity to either speak at a later date, whether they're in favor of it, whether they're against it, or whether or not they're impacted by it. That's the whole purpose of the bylaw amendments as well, right? So again, for myself, it's been made very clear that, this is something the community wants and it would help them make a better, more informed decision. So I'm willing to support that. Thank you.
Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be in support of this. I do need some clarification quickly, though, while we have everybody here from administration, because I'm hearing the words you said earlier. This particular public hearing, there's more to come down the road. And this public hearing is particularly to the zoning and rezoning of that land. So I guess my clarification is that public hearing focuses on that and only that. Some other things may not be addressed during that public hearing that questions may be out there about, but there will be further public hearings to come with other questions eventually. Is that my understanding?
CAO Panasic.
Thank you. Through the mayor to members of council. So the intent is that there would be a lot of, I won't call them public hearings because that's a statutory process related to the amendments of statutory documents. And when we are looking at a municipal development plan or a land use bylaw, both of those are statutory documents with very prescribed public hearing processes. The rest of it is not a requirement for an amendment through a statutory document, but it is something that is absolutely needed when we look at the details. And, as we work through the process and where everything goes and how this looks and the frontage and all of the details related to the development, that'll happen in the future. The design of the golf course will be, to council's satisfaction at some point in time. So there are a lot of steps that are required and a lot of communication that both 999 and the town intend on bringing the public through that process. But it is not a statutory requirement of the municipality.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be speaking in favor of the proposed motion. Mr. Hasan and PAR 999 have been pretty frank in speaking that it's important to them that there's public support behind their development. I think by delaying this, it gives PAR 999 the opportunity to host their open house, which Mr. Hasan had indicated that he wants to do on around January 5th. That gives the opportunity for everybody in the community to attend those open houses and to be able to make sure they're educated, what's on what potentially might happen with this development, be able to ask any questions and get any answers that they may need. We may also know by January 15th if final accreditation has happened, none of which really have any bearing on changing the municipal development plan or the land use bylaw. But I think it does help that process move smoother by making sure there's a venue other than that for citizens to be able to voice questions and concerns. So as Councillor Magoon said, the intent is to make those two public hearings as boring as possible. So that would be the goal, and hopefully everybody's concerns can be addressed and considered before that comes forward. So thank you.
And council, any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question that council direct administration to reschedule the public hearing date for the municipal development plan 1084 TAC 2 and the land use bylaw 1088 TAC 18 to January 16, 2024 at 4 p.m. Council, please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just have a point of clarification I'm seeking from administration and likely a motion to follow up. If administration could clarify, because of the rescinded motion, you'll need further direction from council to facilitate a public open house with the developer jointly, I'm assuming?
CEO.
Through the mayor to members of council. So that was Part 999 has the intent was that they would be doing that as the developer. But this wasn't a process that the town was formally involved with.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess based on hearing that, I think that further punctuates why it's important for me that council direct that. Because, and again, it's for people for everyday people, just common folks who are concerned about the development, but who aren't up to speed on what the legal requirements are for amending bylaws and going through procedures and that sort of thing. They don't necessarily understand what that process looks like from, point of idea conceptually to shovels in the ground. And so I think they have concerns from a town lens about what are those check stops, pardon me, that you previously spoke to, right? They want to know, well, what happens when, there actually is, a definitive plan laid out by the developer. How do I as a citizen see that? Or when does that come to council? Or what are our check stops as a community? Those sorts of things. They don't understand that procedure. I'm assuming that most people, they don't have that level of engagement. So I think that's an opportunity for us as a community to come together with a partner of the developer and say to the community, look, here's what they're proposing. As a community, here's what you're going to see, and here's your potential times to engage with council or engage with administration or the developer. So I guess from my point of view, and I would look to council, I would still think that's important and necessary, is to have all parties at the table so that the folks know what to expect down the road. Because again, I think that's where our problems are, is when people have questions and they feel like they don't have answers. We need to make sure that there's as much transparency as possible. So I turn that to council before I make a motion, because I don't want to draw dead at the table.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. And before discussing that further, CEO, do we require any more motions to clean up what we've done with the rescinding of the two public hearings so far?
Through the mayor, no, that's everything. Both of those dates have been set for the 16th.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. And council, I remind us that in a council meeting, we need a motion to have a discussion. Councillor Taylor.
Councillor McGowan, on November 22nd, council recognized that there was a communication issue with, let me say, a communication opportunity with this project. And we did make a motion where we directed administration to provide a thorough public update on the golf course lands, at least on their part of the golf course lands. So that might do, but my question is a follow-up to that to administration, which may assist you. I hope it does. What's the plans for that? It's been 2 weeks since we made that motion. When's that communication coming out and what's it going to look like?
CEO Panasic.
Through the mayor to members of council, the intent is that this will come tomorrow, and if not the next day, but we do intend on having that out right away. And what it'll look like is laying out what all of these steps are, outlining the opportunities for people to get involved, having people, educating everybody on what the steps are, what steps have been taken, what steps are on the table right now, and what are the future steps in order to get to that final step of construction. So that's what it'll look like. We also have pulled in all of the information from this development that we could provide, including the drawings, and we tried to condense it all into one easily located spot for the public. So we do intend on getting this out hopefully by tomorrow.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. Councillor Magoon.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I think Councillor Taylor has a follow-up before I go.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Taylor, can you key your mic? There you go. Thank you.
Would that be online and available in a spot here where people could look at, or one of the both, or one?
CEO.
Through the mayor to members of council, I don't know what the plan is on exactly where we had posted, but I think this would be very conducive based on my look at the first draft, is that would be posted around the government center. We can provide copies. We'll provide it online through our social media, through all of our available channels that we have to us, and as well as physical copies if anyone would like to come in and take that home with them.
Thank you, CAO.
Thank you.
Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm going to try a motion. So I apologize, I'm crafting on the fly. I'd like to make a motion that council direct administration to provide support and personnel to PAR 999 during their public engagement session for the purposes of clarifying town roles and procedures around this potential development. If I could speak to it, Mr. Mayor.
Just a moment, Councillor Magoon. CEO Panasic, any amendments to the wording of this motion required by administration for logistical reasons?
Through the mayor, no, I think that's clear for us.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Magoon, please speak to it.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think really this serves a few purposes. The first is, I think, a well-informed town we're one step ahead of the ball. Having a staff member or staff members along at that public open house, it facilitates a bit of transparency to the community, because we all know that there are questions that the community might have, and it would be good to know what those are ahead of the game, or to be able to sort of face those questions with the developer to say, well, holistically, what does this look like in our community? Because the worst thing I can imagine in the world is having an open house, having a community member come forward and saying to the developer, well, what's the procedure for this? Well, no offense, the developer is not the municipal body in this instance. And I would really rather have an expert on hand to say, well, procedurally, this is what that looks like, right? So again, it's do we want to deal with these questions ahead in the best venue as a team? Or do we want to deal with it in an ad hoc basis where what happens is we have miscommunications or misunderstandings or people put their own spin on things? I would rather just deal with it up front. And if it means having, you know, a member of staff on hand or two, I think that's probably the best process for that, which is why I'm putting forward this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Council, the motion on the floor is that council direct administration to provide support and personnel to PAR 999 during their public engagement session for the purposes of clarifying town rules and procedures around this potential development. And for debate, we have Councillor Chambers.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I will be speaking in support of this motion. I think that we need to have a unified front. We need our residents to not be making multiple trips to multiple venues on multiple days to get information. I think that many people have questions for the developers as well as they'll have questions for the town, and they should have a venue where they're able to do both of those things. I think the goal is clarity, and I really do feel that having both people in the room during that time frame will be the best use of everyone's time and energy. And yeah, very happy to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be speaking in favor of the motion. I appreciate the clarity regarding what the town staff are going to be doing there and that it's specifically intended to clarify town rules and procedures in the development. I think it's important for citizens to understand that the town of Hinton is not a partner in PAR 999's proposed development. The town put out a expression of interest request for interested parties to put forward proposals. Out of that came an offer from the town to supply land and opportunity, but the two at that point become divorced. The developer is doing the development and the town is, as I said, provided the land, provided the opportunity, and is now governing it from a municipal legislative standpoint moving forward. So I think it's important just to make sure that there is a clear recognition that the town is facilitating, providing information, but the town is not a partner in this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, of course, will support this, but I think it's really, really important for the citizens to know how important it is to get your questions in, your concerns in prior to the open house. So all that stuff can be addressed at that meeting. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Anything further from council? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question that council direct administration to provide support and personnel to PAR 999 during their public engagement session for the purposes of clarifying town rules and procedures around this potential development. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion carries unanimously. And with that, we will come to the end of delegations and presentations. Thank you, Mr. Hasan, for your time. And Councillor Race.
We have a 7-minute break. 5.
Councillor Race, we'll do that after the closed session, if that's okay. Oh, no. Okay. So we're going to take a 7-minute recess. We'll re-adjourn at what's that? 5:40. Council meeting will reconvene at 5:43. Next item on the agenda is closed session. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we go into closed session for a brief discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, any discussion? Then we'll call the question that council move into closed session. Councillors. Please vote now. The motion carries unanimously. I'll get that. Administration, what's the result of the vote?
Through the mayor to members of council, we are recommending that council appoints Sterling Mosel to the Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee for a 2-year term.
Thank you, CAO. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council appoint Sterling Moselle to the Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee for the 2-year term and add that council direct administration to continue advertising for remaining open committee positions and to bring any applications back to council for an appointment at a future council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Do you want to speak to it?
Thank you to Sterling for he's a member of currently the Community Advisory Council as well. So thank you for him to put his name forward to be part of this Beaver Boardwalk, and looking forward to being part of the committee. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question that council appoint Sterling Mosel to the Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee for a 2-year term, and that council direct administration to continue advertising for the remaining open committee positions and to bring any applications back to council for an appointment at a future council meeting. Councillors, please vote now. Roger that. And with that, the motion carries unanimously. This brings us to item 6.2 on our agenda, non-residential tax incentive bylaw number 1161. Administration.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. So we are recommending to provide first reading to bylaw 1161-2. Before you, this is an amendment to the town's non-residential tax incentive bylaw. The intent of the bylaw as a whole is to provide non-residential property tax incentives for new industrial and commercial developments and expansions. This is aligning with Hinton's broader goals and strategic priorities of fostering sustainable growth and ensuring infrastructure security. So the bylaw that amendment that you have in front of you, this is in compliance with section 364.2 of the MGA. The main changes that you'll see as a part of this amending bylaw is some housekeeping, allowance for tax exemption versus a tax rebate, and this the inclusion of tax exemption, two different levels of tax exemptions. Tax exemption A has been the bylaw that was existing, with the exception of splitting out the two different classes. Then tax exemption B is the major change as a part of this bylaw, and that does include a 15-year exemption for 100% of new assessment, not existing, for eligible developments. The key here is that as of today, there really is only one parcel that would be anywhere close to the $250 million assessment requirement, and that would be Mondi. And this is required to accommodate tax concessions for that development. And I'll take any questions that council may have.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to clarify though, this tax incentive bylaw is open to any new commercial or industrial development or expansion, including R999's proposed project. Is that correct?
CAO Panasic.
Through the mayor to members of council, yes, both of the different levels are eligible to anybody if they meet the criteria set out in the bylaw. So tax exemption A, my assumption would be more appropriate for that development. Tax exemption B is a very, very high bar for any development to meet at a $250 million assessment amount. So that is a little bit more exclusionary, but tax exemption A, as which we've had in place for quite a while, any business is is eligible for that based on a 25% change in their assessable amount based on whatever investment they've made.
Thank you,
If I could-
CO.
If I could follow up, Mr. Mayor?
Please.
And just for further clarification, this is the only tax incentive or tax rebate program that's municipally available for any proposed development that comes forward in the town of Hinton. Is that correct?
CO Panasic.
Through the mayor to members of council, there are other avenues available to provide tax incentives, but they're very exclusive. There are limited circumstances where you can authorize tax agreements, but those are very exclusive to operators of public or operators of utility of linear property on municipal land, which to my knowledge, we don't have any that would be but that's really more of a negotiated agreement, but that's very exclusive for that particular type of development.
Sorry if I may, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for the confusion. Just to clarify, for a proposed development such as par 999s, this is the only avenue for any tax rebate or tax incentive that would be available to them, correct?
Through the mayor, yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, CO Panasic and Councillor Stashik. Anything further from council? Seeing nothing, then we'll call the question. Oh, Councillor Haas.
I'd like to make the motion.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
the council provides first reading to bylaw number 1161, TAC 2. And if I can speak to it, yeah, I mean, this is the beginning of that process and, you know, and the slight amendments to accommodate so that we improve the development in our community. So I'm looking forward to this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. And council, we do have a motion on the floor. The council provides first reading to bylaw number 1161 TAC 2. Any debate? Councillor Taylor.
Maybe I should have asked about this sooner. I'm sorry. The old version of the bylaw used to have a 4-year expiry date. This bylaw, I couldn't find any expiry date in the bylaw. Is there a reason for that? Because I favor expiry dates for a variety of reasons. One, economic conditions change, so incentives might not be necessary. And two, the other function that I think expiry dates do is they force automatic legislation. So, you know, periodically it comes up, you note it, it's coming up in 4 years, and council gets an opportunity to review it and modify it as circumstances may have changed. So is there a reason why the expiry date from the old version was not put forward to the new version?
CO Panasic.
Through the mayor to members of council, the expiry date is September of 2026. You won't see that because this is an amending bylaw, so only the amended wording has been included in the amending bylaw. Once that amended wording has been included, it'll be incorporated, but we're not recommending any change to the original bylaws expiry date of September of 2026.
Thank you, CO Panasic. Councillor Taylor, you may redirect.
Well, it's an even shorter September. Oh, that's about 3.5 years. Okay. Fine. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Anything further from council? Then we'll call the question. The council provides first reading to bylaw number 1161 TAC 2. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion carries unanimously. This brings us to item 6.3, road closure bylaw number 1174, second and third reading. Administration.
Thank you, Mayor. I will turn this one over to Ms. Pekka.
Yes, Councillor Taylor, go ahead, ask your question. Nope.
So quiet. It's really just a clarifying question, if I could, please. I don't quite understand it. It's section 438 of the bylaw. Maybe I should have asked this. I think it needs to be clarified a bit. The applicant must construct a new development or expansion with eligible capital costs of no more than 15 million Canadian dollars within one given fiscal year. Is that the way it's supposed to read? Or is it supposed to read like before the exemption expires, or just, can you explain that to me? And what do you? Thank you.
CEO Panasic.
Yeah, through the mayor to members of council. So the way it works is for that tax exemption B is you have your criteria for you to apply or to even be eligible, but there's also a trigger or an assurity of some investments in order to get you onto the tax exemptions as it's as they're laid out here. So eligible non-residential developments would have to make that minimum $15 million to trigger and to be to trigger these tax exemptions upon meeting a number of other criteria. So that's more of a trigger point of getting on and one of the criteria in order to be on those tax exemptions.
Follow up, please. That's what I thought that was for. In that case, wouldn't the wording be more appropriate if it said 15 million Canadian dollars before the exemption applies and not within one given fiscal year? That matches what you said more carefully than the words here, I believe.
CEO Panasic.
Through the mayor to members of council. So this was worded within one fiscal year because we didn't want to, if you have an assessment of over 250 million, 15 millions really is not much to make small investments over time. So it almost guarantee that all eligible or non-residential developments would get that. And what we wanted to make sure is that there's a triggering event with a large investment into the community prior to leaving it. So we did condense the timeline to 1 year and not allowing them to piecemeal it over time, because it would be very difficult just administratively to determine what's an investment and what's just, I'll say regular maintenance on existing assessment. So it was 15 million in 1 year to trigger or as seen as a larger investment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. Okay. Now, item 6.3, road closure bylaw number 1174. CEO Panasic.
Thank you, Mayor. Now I will turn this over to Ms. Pekka.
You say CAO Panasic and through to council. So before you this evening is bylaw 1174 is a request to provide some about a year ago, council provided first reading and we had a public hearing following that in the autumn of 2022. Then it was sent to Alberta Transportation for processing and has recently then been approved. Tonight, we're asking you to pass the bylaw, which will allow us to register the bylaw at land titles and finalize the subdivision for the tiny home development in the Bhutan lands area. That's my story so far tonight. I would be happy to answer any questions for you tonight.
Thank you, administration. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no questions. I'd like to move that council gives second reading for road closure bylaw number 1174 as presented. And if I may, this is just some administrative details. We were waiting on traffic and we need to get this cleared up. So that's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Anything further from council? Oh, Councillor Taylor.
May I ask, please, if I could, why from the time we did the first reading, did it take the Minister of Transportation 1 year to sign this? That seems like a very long period of time.
CEO Panasic.
Who, was it us? Was it him? Or what's the delay? What was the delay caused by is my question. Thank you.
Through the mayor to members of council, I agree. It's an excruciating process to close any undeveloped road or developed road, but I can assure you a year is very normal in this process. I think it's just a matter of very few people having the authority to do these, and the municipality is the one who's required to wait that period of time.
Thank you, CAL. Anything further from council? Then we'll call the question. The council gives second reading for road closure bylaw number 1174 as presented. Councillors, please vote now. And that's carried unanimously. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we give third reading for road closure bylaw number 1174 as presented. I have nothing to say to it.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, anything? Then we'll call the question. The council give third reading for road closure bylaw number 1174 as presented. Councillors, please vote now. That motion is carried unanimously. Which brings us to item 6.4 of our agenda, road closure bylaw number. Oh, Councillor Taylor, you have a comment? Okay, Councillor Taylor.
I don't think it's acceptable that it take the government of Alberta a year to do something like this. So I think we should try to do something about this. I would like to seek your permission, council, if you don't mind, please, to direct the mayor to write a letter to the government of Alberta about the period of time for the process to close an undeveloped road. I do believe that the current government has a committee on red tape. I'm not sure who to send the letter to, but that would be a good starting point. But I think a year for us can be problematic because it could be businesses that are relying on this or others. And a letter will just get our voice in there to try to improve the system, which is currently unacceptable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And before you turn off your microphone, once the motion is up on the screen, I'll just get you to confirm that that is the wording.
No, that council direct the mayor. I believe the mayor has to sign the letter to be have impact. That the council direct the mayor to write a letter to the government of Alberta about government of Alberta about the period of time to, I believe the town manager said, to close an undeveloped road. By all means, administration can write the letter for you, but I believe you have to sign it. That's, I think, appropriate. Thank you.
And for administration, I believe it's the council direct the mayor to send a letter to the government of Alberta about the period of time to close on undeveloped road, not and. Thank you. Councillor Race.
Councillor Stewart, what is your intent? What is the end result you would like to see with this?
Councillor Taylor.
The committee of red tape reduction seriously consider this and direct it to the appropriate ministry to reduce the time frame to a more reasonable time frame. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be in support of the motion. I think dealing with government red tape is ridiculous in every department. So every encouragement that the provincial government could get from municipalities to try and make those types of things more efficient is an improvement in my mind. A business having to wait a year to find out about whether a piece of property is approved for their use in a development that they want to do, it's just not acceptable, and that just doesn't move at the pace of business. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you through the mayor to Councillor Taylor. I'm and we'll be speaking in support of this as well, but I do wonder if we should be more specific, rather than just saying Government of Alberta. If your wish is to have this go to the Ministry of Red Tape Reduction, maybe that should be stated in the letter or in the motion, as well as potentially CCing the MLA. That's my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. CEO Panasic, any thoughts on the wording of the motion at this time?
Note through the mayor, I'm okay with it. If we did want to make it more specific, we can certainly add to close an undeveloped road to the Minister of Service Alberta and Red Tape.
Councillor Taylor, how does that fit with your intended motion?
If the government still had a Ministry of Red Tape Reduction, I know they used to, but I'm not quite sure if it's active right now. That's the only reason I wasn't specific, but.
Is there any objection to the additional wording in the motion at this time? Okay. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to support this. I think one of my biggest concerns is if we had a developer come in and want to provide, say, housing, strategic housing for seniors, or for those individuals who are affected more than others with the housing shortage that exists. This is one of those roadblocks, right? So I certainly support this. I appreciate Councillor Taylor putting it forward, because I think it aligns very importantly with some of our strategic plans. Thank you.
Councillor Race.
Mr. Mayor, would we want to include our MLA in this motion, that he also is CC'd to this?
CEO Panasic, any suggestion there?
Through the mayor to members of council, we can certainly include that. But as a matter of practice, anything that we do send to a minister from the municipality, we always CC our MLA as well.
Thank you, CEO. Council, anything further? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question that council direct the mayor to send a letter to the government of Alberta about the period of time to close an undeveloped road to the Minister of Service Alberta, Red Tape Reduction. Councillors, please vote now. And that's carried unanimously. On to item 6.4, road closure bylaw number 1175, second and third reading. CEO Panasic.
Thank you, Mayor. This one will go to Ms. Picca as well.
Thank you, CAO Panasic through to council. So similar to the previous bylaw, this was roughly about a year in processing. Just received it back, looking for second and third reading. This one is about the Rowan Street area, and we've included a map for your reference. It also has to do with a land sale to a private landowner. And again, it's will help facilitate the subdivision and the land sale. I'll pass it back to you. Thanks. And if you have any questions.
Thank you, administration. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council give second reading for road closure bylaw number 1175 as presented. And you know what? Admin has spoken to it. You know, this is one of those procedural things. I'm good. Thank you.
Is there anything further from council on this one? Seeing nothing, then we'll call the question that council gives second reading for road closure bylaw number 1175 as presented. Councillors, please vote now. And that is carried unanimously. Councillor Haas.
I'd like to move, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the council give third reading to road closure bylaw 1175 as presented. And the only thing to state on this one is, again, I appreciate the previous motion from Councillor Taylor, because the last one wasn't as holding things up as much. This one definitely was holding things up in the sale of land and things. So I appreciate that motion and trying to get advocating for some speedier services. So, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Any discussion from council? Seeing none, we'll call the question that council give third reading for road closure bylaw number 1175 as presented. Councillors, please vote now. And that is carried unanimously. which takes us to item 6.5 of our agenda, cancellation of December 26, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting. Administration, care to elaborate on why Boxing Day is not a good day for a meeting?
I don't think I need to.
Thank you, administration. Councillor Haas.
I'd like to move that we cancel the December 26, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, any discussion on this one? Seeing none, they'll call the question that council cancel the Committee of the Whole meeting for December 26, 2023. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion carries unanimously. This brings us to section 7 of our agenda, correspondence, and 7.1 letters from Gerald Soroka MP. Administration?
Through the mayor, nothing from administration, but I believe generally for correspondence, we take a look at it holistically and approve the correspondence unless there is something that council would like to action. There is a request as a part of the correspondence, but that is at the discretion of council to pull an action if that is your wish.
Thank you, Stay Open Asset. Councillor Ostashik.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that council accept letters from Gerald Soroka MP and tax penalty reversal request for information, please.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Councillor Ostashik, are you okay with the wording that's up on the screen there now for your motion? Thank you. Council, the motion on the floor is that council accept the correspondence for information. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So accepting the correspondence for the tax penalty reversal required, we're accepting it as information, but do we get back to that person saying this was our decision?
CEO Panasic.
Through the mayor, yes, we do.
Thank you, CEO. Council, anything further? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question that council accept the correspondence for information. Councillors, please vote now. Thank you. And Councillor Taylor votes in favor. And that motion carries unanimously. This brings us to section 8 of our agenda and 8.1 notice of motion from Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, please have 30 seconds. I left my notes in this one in the other room. If I'm mistaken, I won't take more than 3.
Please go get your notes, Councillor. I did the same thing. I brought mine from in there by accident.
Found it. Okay. Thank you for your patience. The motion was the council direct administration to establish a working group, which includes council or at least some councilors for strategic projects. And my thoughts on this one were, we want input into strategic projects and the ability to direct, or do we just want to get updates on strategic projects like we have been? This working group is different, I believe, than what we've been doing, is that it gets us more involved in that regard. The special projects group was sold to us as a way to implement our strategic plan and possibly grow the town. So I believe a more direct approach makes sense. If we met at least quarterly, we might know about unforeseen problems or opportunities. For example, we might have foreseen issues on communications with large projects and had an opportunity to adjust our approach to that or other problems that we might see. If there are internal policy issues that are affecting implementation of our strategy plan, then council would have an opportunity to adjust those through the regular channels. The aim of this group is not to undermine administration's line of command, but just to provide input to drive the success of this group for the remainder of our term, because it's such an integral part to our strategic plan, the two folks that we've hired to do this. Again, this reflects a more direct involvement in strategic planning, but it's appropriate because we've taken a unique approach to strategic planning through the hiring of a strategic director and department. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Before discussion, CAO Panasic, are there any issues from administration with the wording of this motion? Is it possible for administration to establish a working group, or does it require further direction from council?
Through the mayor to members of council, no, this would be sufficient to create a working group.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. So council, we have a motion on the floor that council direct administration to establish a working group, which includes council, at least some councillors for strategic projects. Councillor Chambers.
Through the mayor to Councillor Taylor. Generally, I'm in support of this. I think I understand what the intent is, but I think there's value in maybe adding some terminology about administration coming back to us with terms of reference so that it's very clear what the role of council is on this committee versus the role of administration, to make sure we stay in our appropriate lane throughout this committee. I don't know if that's just maybe a given based on what your standard practice is. I'm still new here. But I think that that's a very important piece, that this could be an incredibly valuable tool. But if the boundaries aren't laid out in the beginning, there could be some issues. So I'm not sure what that looks like, but that's just my only concern.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little bit confused too about what role that this committee would actually play and how it would functionally interact with town administration. I understand like the premise and the idea behind it, but how it would be practically applied, I'm unsure. And for that reason, I don't know that I can support this right now. I see the merit. I think there's opportunity though, if there's something missing regarding in how the town's strategic plan is being implemented and driven. There's opportunity for council to have discussions with the CAO and ask CAO questions and maybe make some suggestions to the CAO about how things could better move forward. For me, this isn't completely off the table. I just don't think it's something that I'm going to support today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I do appreciate the idea behind this, but I still think that taking an opportunity to sit down with our CAO and maybe with strategic services too, to have a conversation, or not strategic services, strategic operations, whatever that name is. Sorry. But I think there's still an opportunity for council and our CEO in that department to sit down and really discuss, moving forward and how we can assist. I too appreciate Councillor Chambers' discussion on terms of reference, because this is a slippery slope again, and I think we need to have a more in-depth conversation with our CEO before we go ahead with making a new working group in this fashion. So I'm not against it, but I'm just not sure if I'm here at this point ready to make a decision without that further conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I think to my colleague, Councillor Chambers, new or not, I think you hit it right on the head. I think that's a really important question to ask, is what's everybody's role in a potential working group like this? Because the last thing you want to have is a working group where council is stepping on the toes of administration and their job, and what's the purpose, what's the function. So I would like to ask administration for a little bit more input. If this was the will of council this evening, if Councillor Taylor's motion was supported, procedurally, what would happen next? Would we see some terms of reference come back to us? Would there be some interface between administration and council about what that might look like? I would like to support this, but I want to make sure it has the best chance for success.
CEO Panasic.
Through the mayor to members of council, yes, absolutely. Because I struggle a little bit with this one, because there was two reasons provided. One was to direct strategic initiatives versus simply get informed. A working group does not have any authority to direct administration or to direct anything. A committee could, if council wanted to outsource their authority on key strategic items, but I would not recommend that. The other thing is to work through problems, internal problems with policy, procedure, whatever those are. But that is the role of administration. So if there are potential issues with how things are going, I would recommend that council follow the proper procedures through the CAO to the rest of administration. The other thing I'll say is, here at the town of Hinton, we have a very heavy council schedule, right? We meet every single week. I don't see the need for this, especially if we are setting aside a certain group of council, especially on key strategic items, and we're separating that out and a lot of that input. My preference would be to do this with all of council. If we wanted to set a schedule where, we talk about some of our strategic items on a regular basis, I think that would be a more appropriate format in order to do those things.
Thank you, CAO. Councillor Race.
Mr. Mayor, right now, I cannot support this. The route I want to go is basically what CAO was saying. If there are issues, let's address those issues. Let's talk about them, hey? Get to the CAO, have strategic services involved. Now, if none of that works, then let's look at this committee. But let's talk to the people who are involved first. So for those reasons, I will not support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that after a strategic plan, one of the tactical part of the plan was to meet with directors on a quarterly basis, council and CAO, for the opportunity to get some reports, but also asking questions and stuff. And I'm not sure if we've actually really made that happen yet, but I think this is where we can, be more focused on that and schedule those dates, so that we can meet with the directors and ask questions as council. And we always have the opportunity, if we have a question on our strategic plan, that's where we ask our CAO for an update on something and then bring in a report if need be. So I think there's still avenues we can do for this particular motion. So thank you. But I guess I asked for clarification.
CAO Panasic?
Through the mayor to members of council, Councillor Haas. So that particular item on the tactical plan, we do that already, and that is the updates that are provided. We've decided to do them on a monthly basis for council, but we also have other processes laid out to have related to our strategic plan and our strategic items as well.
Thank you, CAO. Council, anything further? Seeing none, we'll call the question. The council direct administration to establish a working group which includes council or at least some councillors for strategic projects. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is defeated with Mayor Nissen and Councillor Taylor in favor. Councillor Taylor.
I appreciate your concerns, but following up on this and having a, every 3 months or 4 months, meeting with directors, especially considering the amount of money we're spending on this, I think is appropriate. So just to highlight the need to have some more direct involvement in this plan is just so important to our success. However we do that, I would have preferred this, but there are other ways to do it as well, which you mentioned. And thank you for mentioning those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And that will bring us to section 9 of our agenda this evening, which is reporting, and we have council reports. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Race. You'll have to cue the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on November 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, I attended a super conference in the city, FCSS, or Family Community Support Services Association Conference. Excellent conference. At that conference, I was named vice chair for West Yellowhead FCSS for the second term. I also attended 3 really, really good sessions. I felt they were very good. One of the sessions was, it was called the Man-Boy Code, Breaking That Code. And I'm going to get all the slide deck and make sure that all of council gets that presentation. It talks about how we have made men the way they are today. We've said you've got to act this way, you've got to dress this way, you've got to not cry. It's huge. The other one I attended was a living wage as opposed to a minimum wage, and the impact on people who are given a living wage, not a minimum wage. Another one was volunteering, different aspects of volunteering. Eh? I guess there's 3 different types of volunteering. So as soon as I get that info, I'll make sure that all of council gets it, because it was really good, especially that breaking the man-boy code. That one was just great. Another thing, and I'm sure you guys are all waiting to hear about this, I was able to talk to our premier, lovely lady. I asked her if she received that wonderful Hinton t-shirt that we gave her at AUMA, and she very honestly said, and I think I was the only one in Alberta who thought that she would actually receive it. But she didn't receive it, but I'm not going to give up on that. I was able to talk to our MLA. I was able to talk to a MLA from Calgary, and she's with the NDP party. She would love to come to Hinton and spend some time with us here with the FCSS group. And it was just a really good 3 days. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you. Through the mayor. So I was able to attend my very first Community Futures strategic planning session, which was very eye-opening. Definitely a lot of information, lots to learn there. But it was a lovely group and a really very educational afternoon. I was absent for some of the morning, and I was appointed to the IRC committee in my absence. So that's the committee that will review some of the loan applications, et cetera. So my first meeting is Thursday morning with that committee. So very excited to kind of jump right into that application process, working with some of the local businesses. It was very interesting for me to see a lot of the groups that, or the different initiatives, I guess, that Community Futures rolls out. Many of them I was aware of in the community, but didn't quite understand the full, how robust they were coming from that portfolio. So that was really great. As well, this weekend, we had some fun at the U18 hockey tournament. Both of the local teams won bronze, so that was good. And there was a fundraiser that took place for the Paul Stenhouse Scholarship. So there was an airplane toss. I don't know the exact amount of money that was raised, but all the funds that were raised to that are going directly to the scholarship. So it was very meaningful for a lot of the kids and the parents and teachers to have that be part of, which is for a lot of those boys, their final tournament. So it was very well done, and definitely a wonderful thing for the community to support in this fashion.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Only thing to report this evening is with the Christmas season coming, and we just got word this evening, the PATH has been working, Wendy, working with the George Canyon group, and they have successfully signed a contract for him to come to perform in Hinton on February 24th. Tickets are on sale now, so if you're looking for a Christmas present, please do so. They've also booked for February 29th, a couple of comedians are coming to the PATH as well again. So those are also now available. And Confusion Airs are also coming on January. So lots of good things happening at the PATH. The group, the board has, we're trying to do at least 1 or 2 bigger events put on by us, along with all the other events that are taking place there from the user group. So lots of good things to come. So that's all I'd report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Counselor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing too major to report, although I am excited to mention that we will be meeting as a policing committee again on the 20th of this month, and we'll be discussing the updated bylaw at that time. So I'm excited to be doing that. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor Magoon. Counselor Taylor.
Councillor McGowan, can you update us? Is the policing committee is an ongoing committee? You spoke as if it just started up again.
Thank you, Counselor Taylor. Counselor Magoon.
No, there was, I believe, I'd have to go back and look at my schedule, but I believe there was a change or a delay in one of the meeting dates. It's just we're coming back to our next meeting. So,
Counselor Taylor, did you have something further? Nope. Thank you. Counselor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So since council's last reporting, I too attended the Community Futures West Yellowhead annual meeting. I got to participate in my first investment review committee where the committee reviews applications and judges them and decides if they're going to get funding or not. So that was pretty interesting. Hadn't done one of those before. We also did the board of directors meeting, strategic plan discussion to come up with strategy for the group for the year, and executive committee meeting as well. And before Councillor Chambers arrived, I was happy to nominate her for the item. And that was supported by the rest of the groups. And that's all I have to report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Ostashik. And for myself, I did have the honor of attending the Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee's new member orientation last week. And I'm hoping that the administration has it all on video for our new youngest member of the team, because I'm sure he'd rather watch it that way than sit in my office and get the full presentation. But it was very, very good and very informative. And I think our newest members on that committee are well prepared to hit the ground running at their first meeting. And with that, administration, Chief Administrative Officer Panasiuk.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I don't have anything pressing to report now, but for the next week, we will have our regular fulsome administrative report.
Thank you, CAO. Counselor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we go into closed session with a 5-minute break.
Thank you, Counselor Haas. Counselor Magoon.
sorry, just a point of clarification for any of our visitors, Mr. Mayor, is that although we're going into closed session, following that, we'll have the adjournment and then the committee of the whole meeting dealing with budget in the chambers.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Magoon, for pointing that out. And for any members in the audience, if you bear with us for the few minutes, we'll be in closed session. Afterwards, we'll open the doors and you'll be invited into the committee room for the next portion of our evening, which is a committee of the whole meeting to talk about budget. We understand if you don't stick around, though. It's going to be an interesting late night. So with that, we have the question, any discussion? No, we'll call the question that council move into closed session. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Councilors. Councilor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council direct administration to proceed with the acceptance of the infrastructure grant as discussed in closed session.
Thank you, Councilor Haas. Do you want to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Council, any discussion?
Point of clarification information.
Yeah, Councilor Magoon.
Sorry, just the closed session direction as it appears on our screen. Just because it came out of closed session, that council direct administration, and it disappeared. As discussed in closed session, just as clarification.
And administration, can we have that added to the? Thanks. Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Council, any comments? Seeing none, We'll call the question that council direct administration to proceed with the acceptance of the infrastructure grant as discussed in closed session. Councillors, please vote now.
I'm in favor.
Thank you. And Councillor Taylor is voting by hand and he's in favor. So that motion carries unanimously. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we adjourn the regular council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council will call the question. The councillor adjourn the meeting at 7:50 or sorry, 6:50. 6:55. Thank you. Councillors. Please vote now. Or thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor is voting by hand in favor. And that motion carries unanimously.